Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, we continue to look at new rules on pollution emitted by a northern Arizona power plant. We'll discuss the changing nature of employment in an increasingly digital world, and we'll see how photographers are turning their work into books. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. The Environmental Protection Agency earlier this week issued final rules to help reduce emissions from the Navajo Generating Station. The goal is to curb air pollution at the Grand Canyon and other national parks. Yesterday, we heard from a conservationist opposed to the new rules. Today, we hear from representatives of a technical working group that provided many of the rules the EPA adopted. Joining us is David Modier, General Manager of the Central Arizona Project, Kelly Barr, Senior Director of Environmental Management and the Deputy Legal Counsel for Salt River Project, and Stephen Etzedy, Executive Director of the Navajo Nation Environmental Protection Agency. It's good to have you off, Stephen, especially you driving down from the reservation. Good to have you here. Let's start. David, we'll start with you. What exactly did the EPA decide?
Well, I think the EPA decided that the work of the technical working group that you cited did better than what their proposal would have been if it had been implemented. And the technical working group was a group composed of a variety of interests, from tribes to CAP to Department of Interior, the owners, and environmental groups. And it was very successful. I think the key to, my opinion, the key to the success of those negotiations were the respect everybody had for each other in the room.
And again, that group, the working group they call TWIG is like the acronym for it. Yeah. Talk about the process, 5 years of discussions, how much compromise, how much horse trading was going on there.
Well, truly it wasn't 5 years of the TWIG process, thankfully. I'm not sure we would have gotten across that finish line, but we met for about 5 months and hold together in a room several times a week in some cases to try to arrive at a compromise solution. And as David mentioned, we had members from the Environmental Defense Fund, Western Resource Advocates, the Department of the Interior, the Navajo Nation, CAP and SRP, as well as the Gila River Indian community. So really a very diverse set of interests. Got together, tried to reason with one another, try to find a compromise that everyone could live with. And what it did is it paves the way to close one of the units at the end of 2019, and then gives us some additional time to install SCRs on the 2 remaining units.
And again, I know the talks themselves went on for about 5 years or so.
They did.
Obviously, the 5 months of TWIG. Did those previous talks would grease in the skids a little bit, or did you kind of have to start at ground zero?
It did. It was actually really helpful. There were a number of, there was a larger stakeholder process where everybody kind of got to come forward and share their perspectives. And then when we got kind of a general sense of where the various perspectives lined up, we then were able to identify folks who would represent that broad group.
As far as the Navajo Nation, the perspective of the nation here regarding the generating station, jobs, pollution, the whole 9 yards, what'd you bring to the table?
Well, in 2003, I came on board to serve the Navajo Nation in this capacity that I have. And immediately we were already enmeshed with a BART determination for Four Corners Power Plant to reduce sulfur dioxide emissions. And that just rolled right into the BART determination for NGS. We knew that that was coming next. But emission reductions are important for the Navajo Nation. We want to see these facilities perform to the best of their abilities. And my job as the environmental director is to make sure that we're protecting our public health and making sure that our resources are going to be there for our people in the future. And that includes air sheds and view sheds. We do also have our own budding tourism industry. So we have an interest in these similar things that you find in the regional haze rule. So the perspective we bring is trying to force people to understand that we have resources we want to use, coal, and we have these responsibilities to take care of our lands and our people that are very similar to the goals that everybody else has in the Four Corners region. And we have programs and we have processes to do that.
And the importance now of the Navajo Generating Station to the Central Arizona Project. Very quickly, it pumps the water uphill, doesn't it?
Yes, we do. We pump it uphill 3,000 feet and about 330 miles. So power is essential. Without power, there's no water coming in from the Colorado. So having success at this and assuring the continued operation of Navajo Generating Station provides certainty, for the continuity of delivery of our water and at the lowest possible price.
We'll likely see water rates go up though, correct?
We're going to see upward pressure on water rates from many areas, scarcity of water as well as energy costs going up. So yes, it'll have an impact, but it certainly would have a much greater impact if we weren't successful at this process.
Stephen mentioned BART, the part requirements, and in general, it's 5 years. You got to retrofit in 5 years if the EPA says. And obviously, the Twig Group was formed specifically to say that ain't going to cut it. Why doesn't it cut it? Because some conservationists, and we talked to one last night, saying it's 5 years, it's the rules, make it happen.
Right, and there are a number of issues that the power plant is facing in terms of extending the lease, going through a NEPA process, which will take several years. And so we knew we couldn't install the pollution control equipment by the 2018 deadline. And EPA actually recognized that and gave us an alternative that would give us a little more time. It just wasn't sufficient time. So this proposal allows us to, as I mentioned, close a unit at the end of 2019, and then gives us till the end of 2030 to install the pollution control equipment, which allows us to resolve a number of issues that need to be resolved at the plant.
Closing unit or reducing the power
That's
generated,
right.
one or the other.
That's
so
right.
But still, it doesn't necessarily say pollution, it's just reducing the power, correct?
No, if you reduce the power, you also reduce the pollution, right? So we would either curtail requirements or add some pollution control.
Oh, so it would add, okay,
You
so
could.
the pollution controls, because the conservationists are based, and they're talking about folks up there in northern Arizona saying, actually, all this does is say until 2029, the generating station can go full guns and maybe even more so until the rules hit. Is that valid?
Well, from the perspective that we bring to the table, and the reason I think one of the primary reasons for the way the rule was written is because this is one of the few power plants that are actually sited on an Indian reservation. All the other facilities that are subject to BART are not on an Indian reservation. And in that regard, there are other responsibilities that the federal government has in dealing with decision-making that will impact an Indian tribe. In this case, it impacts the Navajo Nation and the Hopi tribe. And in that regard, EPA has some tools that they haven't used very much over these past several years. Coming out of the 1990 Clean Air Act amendments, there was a tribal authority rule that was promulgated, which provides flexibility in certain instances, gives EPA a little bit more discretion and flexibility as to how to implement Clean Air Act programs when it comes to facilities on Indian lands.
As far as this working group was concerned, did you feel that EPA was showing a little more discretion here? What seemed to be because again, critics are saying this is just kicking the can down the line. The EPA is kind of saying, well, hold on a minute, maybe we can work something out. Were you surprised by that?
I think that the initial response of EPA changed over those 5 years you mentioned as they become more knowledgeable about the impacts to water deliveries, to water settling tribes, to the Navajo and the Hopi, that this wasn't just a very simplified merchant plant operating out in the middle of Texas or something like that. So their attitude began to change and said, well, let's see what we can do to still reduce pollution, which is what the BART process is about, and at the same time address the concerns that everyone in this process that were members of the TWIG expressed. And so I congratulate the EPA for recognizing that this was different and it needed a different approach.
Agree?
Absolutely agree. And I think one thing that kind of gets lost sometimes is that this proposal is better than BART. So we will have more emission reductions associated with our proposal than what EPA proposed.
And that is part of the deal, isn't it? That they'll take an alternative as long as it's better than our alternative, which is BART.
Absolutely.
And other people, many of them overlook the fact that the regional haze rule has a goal to attain all of these reductions by the year 2060. So
all right. Well,
the plant is going to close potentially in 2044. We've got time to work on these things and to load everything up, as Kelly was talking about. There are certain things that are happening right now in this time frame for the next 6 years that are very, very sensitive. We, the Navajo Nation, have decided to extend the lease that currently is in place. It was a 50-year lease that ends in 2019. We've decided we want to extend it for another 25 years, which will take it out to the year 2044. So during that transition period, these rules that EPA is promulgating have some very serious implications. And to have the flexibility to work through this real sensitive time frame is important.
When do these rules go into effect?
I think I'll turn that over to Kelly. I'm not sure exactly when the end period is that they become final.
Well, they'll be published in the Federal Register, and then they become effective immediately after that, and that's when the legal challenges may start.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, because it sounds like there might be some legal challenges. That would not be surprising.
We hope not, but because we are, as everyone has said, really, really proud of this process. We think it's a model for resolving complicated environmental issues, and we're really very, very grateful to the people who sat around the table and then supported the product after we were done.
Stephen, last question for you. You made the longest drive down here, so you get the last question. Critics they're concerned. They're concerned about the health of those on the Navajo Nation. They're concerned about visibility to a lesser extent, I think, probably even than the health factor. What are you telling your people? What are you saying?
I've told people this week that put it in the context of the last 20, 30 years. We're on a trend for emission reductions. SRP reduced emissions in the 90s on the heels of the Grand Canyon Visibility Transport Commission. We saw reductions in the early 2000s at Four Corners Power Plant. We're going to continue to see reductions because the Four Corners Power Plant is going to be taking 3 units offline. They did in December of this year. So we have almost 1 full year now of emission reductions at Four Corners Power Plant. There's another coal-fired power plant just off the reservation called San Juan Generating Station. They're going to be taking 2 more units offline. And then when you consider that the Mojave Generating Station that used to use coal from the Navajo Nation no longer exists, it was decommissioned starting in 2005, those 2 units are gone. So when you compile the entire amount of emission reductions on an annual basis, we have much cleaner air as a result of the power plants having less emissions. Now it's my job to find out where the problems still reside that are causing my people to continue to have respiratory illnesses or other things that are attributed to air quality concerns.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. We
you.
appreciate it. Great discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. In tonight's edition of Arizona's Future, we look at jobs and the changing nature of employment in a world that's seeing machines and computers increasingly replace human labor. Dennis Hoffman is an ASU economist with the W.P. Carey School of Business. He joins us now. Dennis, always a pleasure. We're looking at this continuing series is looking at the future of things in Arizona in general as well. This is fascinating because the future of jobs, I mean, we could be redefining what a job is.
Absolutely, Ted. And you know, you can read these look into the future books and robotics and the age of the machine and all of this kind of stuff, and it sounds a bit science fiction oriented. But I think this really resonates with a lot of folks right now, folks that have experienced job loss due to automation and have not been able to, say, win this race with the machine that these people talk about.
In the future, do you want to race with the machine or do you want to run alongside the machine?
I think you want to race with the machine, alongside the machine, as you've said it. Not with the thought that you can beat the computer, not with the thought that you can take advantage of automation or prevent it from happening, or technological process, or somehow hold this back or impede it. I think we need to embrace it. And I think those that do choose to embrace it, and you can do so in many ways. We're talking about STEM degrees, obviously, but we're also talking about people that can articulate products that machines can produce, that can market services that these machines can create. And that you need to complement this automated process. And those will be the winners. Those that turn their backs on this, that say, well, the economy just didn't provide for me. That's going to be a tough row.
Is there a worry, though, a concern that technology could be outpacing the training that we're all scrambling to get?
Well, absolutely. I think it's tough to train, keep pace with training that keeps pace with automation. My mind goes back to a statistics professor that I had in college, and he said, I will teach you classical statistics, I will teach you applications that will last your lifetime, but I will not teach you what happens when you punch the F4 key on a computer. I will not do that, because what happens today will be different than what happens tomorrow. And of course, we need applications, we need to understand applications, but we don't need to get wedded to current technologies. We need to be adaptive and be able to keep pace with this ever-advancing technological process.
So what does that mean in terms of jobs, in terms of employment? Part-time jobs becoming more prevalent, do you think?
It means that individuals that continually monitor their skill set, and I don't want that to be, that doesn't always mean that you can always fix the latest computer. That means you always understand what computers can deliver. And you could be you could be in marketing, you could be in sales, you could be in distribution, you could be in supply chain. You need to understand how goods and services will be transacted as a result of this new machine age. And skills in the past that were rewarded, say physical skills and strength and brawn, and they're going to be replaced. I think the rewarded skills are going to be people that are conscientious, people that can communicate. Actually, it cuts across genders. These authors write that women may have the distinct advantage going forward, Ted, because women are more conscientious. They're able to interact with people at dimensions that outstrip men's ability in many cases.
So from a public policy standpoint, how do you keep from having a society of a bunch of stubborn dudes who aren't keeping up and they're not employed? I mean, you know what happens when societies have a bunch of folks that aren't employed and folks who think that the disparity of income, it sounds like this is a recipe for even more inequality of income. What's going to happen in the future?
That is a potential, that's a risk. That's absolutely a risk. Now the market signals will be clear to those individuals. They're going to have to embrace some of this. Now there always is going to be room, say in Arizona, for HVAC technicians, for people that are going to need a modicum of technical skills, but are willing to kind of roll up the sleeves and do some work. So there will be jobs there, but the jobs that will be rewarded by the market are those jobs that embrace this technology. So that's what these authors talk about, the big divide. So if you're content with manual labor, if you're content with not embracing what a machine can do, your lot is going to be low income and in a pretty tough job.
In general, does that mean that we look at prosperity in a different way? And again, I go back to this part-time nature. Machines make things more efficient. There's no doubt. If I'm working 8 hours or 10 hours a day and all of a sudden the machine's doing what I'm doing in 3 or 4, what am I doing the rest of the day?
Well, leisure, we're going to have more leisure time. We're going to have goods. Some of the points that have been made in this literature suggest that we don't even measure GDP correctly, because GDP is very price-based. If things are given away for free on the internet, which there's huge amounts of information for free on the internet. I bought a car today. I did all of my research on the internet, and I learned a lot, and it was very helpful in the negotiation. I got all of that information for free.
My goodness. Okay, so again, public policy, Arizona lawmakers, decision makers, what did they see when they look into the future and all you see is a bunch of digitals, dots and dashes here? What did they see as far as policy is concerned?
Well, policy, there's still a role for government. government, some of the folks out there watching, and they're saying, Ted, well, it's Hoffman and he's on Horizon. He's always found a role for government. But in this case, the role for government is to provide for education, provide for opportunities for people to learn these skills. And again, STEM is one set of skills, but it's not just STEM. It's ability to communicate. It's ability to kind of think analytically, align yourself with the abilities that these machines have, and think about how you can market products and services more efficiently and in a more lucrative fashion. Infrastructure is certainly a government play. Tax reform would be a government play. Immigration reform, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, but it is huge. Immigration reform would help unleash this labor force.
About 30 seconds left. Is Arizona ready for this future?
Oh, we hope so, Ted. We absolutely hope so. Now, there are some in Arizona that are waiting for the old Arizona to come back. Well, let's just wait this thing out and we'll become this, this growth magnet, this people magnet, and construction will take over again. I think as every month goes by, people are really starting to question that. So investing in education, and more investments in higher education, vocational skills, they're needed, they'll be rewarded.
It's absolutely fascinating stuff. Brave new world out there. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here, Ted.
And tonight's edition of Arizona Art Beat looks at a new exhibit at the Phoenix Art Museum that shows how famous photographers turn their images into books. Producer Shauna Fisher and photographer Juan Magana show us what goes into the process and the page.
Photographs capture a moment in time, sometimes a look at our history, and sometimes a glimpse into our future. Phoenix Art Museum curator Rebecca Senf explains that through photograph books, artists are able to expand their reach to a much larger audience and also control how we see their art.
I think a lot of people assume that when an artist produces a book of their work, they give over the pictures to someone and that other person produces the final book. But actually, photographers are very involved in the process of producing their book, and many photographers see it as an extension of their career.
In the exhibit, The Process and the Page, we can see how famous photographers Ansel Adams, Richard Avedon, and W. Eugene Smith, among others, immersed themselves in creating their books. Senf says it was about much more than just choosing the photographs themselves.
The first step is defining the book. What is the book going to be about? The second is securing a publisher. Who are you going to work with to produce the book? The third step is making aesthetic decisions. So what will the design look like? What will the pictures, how will they appear in the book? The fourth step is actually producing the physical book and going on press. And the fifth step is marketing and selling the book and getting it out to your audience.
Ansel Adams was known for his breathtaking and detailed nature photographs.
But when he realized that many more people would see the books than the prints, that caused him to give more attention to how he produced the books as well. So he was very invested in not just the design and the content and what the book said, but the way the book was made, and that the quality of the reproductions reflected the high quality of his artistic production.
In fact, Adams was the first photographer to create books of his work. To get his first book published in 1930, he created the prototype for Kickstarter, the crowdfunding website. People paid $35 in advance for a copy, and the money helped Adams pay for printing costs. Senf says one of her favorite parts of the exhibit is looking at the maquettes. Maquettes, also known as book dummies, are early versions of the books. With maquettes, the photographer can play around with images to get the book to be exactly what they want.
So in the cases, you'll see artists working on these things. And what I'm most proud of are examples where you can see multiple maquettes and actually watch as the artist refines their thinking about the book and makes adjustments to those book maquettes and dummies. And we see the book changing as it evolves towards the final product.
The exhibit is set up differently than traditional museum experiences. Alongside the prints are the photograph books, available for patrons to thumb through and see the photographer's vision come alive.
It was great fun to go through the vaults and look at the materials and find those objects that would help our audience understand the ways in which these artists had participated and the investment that they had in producing a finished product that really reflected their ideas and their career.
The process and the page will be at the Phoenix Art Museum until August 17th. For more information, check the website phxart.org. Thursday on Arizona Horizon, another debate. This one features the 2 Republican primary candidates for Arizona's Congressional District 9. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.